Hey Nightmare Seekers, welcome to No Sleep Nightmares Reddit. I'm your guide into the shadows, the one who digs up the creepiest tales. Some I've lived through myself, just to keep you up all night. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because you won't want to miss what's coming. Tonight, we're diving into a collection of horrors from the wild. Ordinary folks like me and you, heading into the woods for peace, only to find something ancient, something hungry, waiting in the dark. These aren't just stories, they're warnings. Stick with me till the end, because what's lurking out there might already be closer than you think. Ready to lose some sleep? Let's go. So, here's the deal. Back in '92, I was Gerald Martin, just a regular guy, a mechanic with grease-stained hands and a back that ached like hell from years of bending over engines. City life was grinding me down. All that noise, all that concrete. I needed out. My buddy Leon was supposed to come with me to Whispering Pines, this little-known campground I'd found on a tattered map. Secluded, quiet, right by a lake. Perfect, right? But Leon bailed last minute. Work stuff, he said. No biggie, I thought. I'd go solo. Loaded up my RV with canned soup, a folding chair, and a flashlight, and hit the road. The drive out there was gorgeous. Pittsburgh's grey streets melted into rolling hills, then dense forests exploding with fall colors. Reds, oranges, golds. It was like driving into a painting. By late afternoon, I rolled into Whispering Pines. The place was damn near empty, just a couple of tents in the distance, barely visible through the trees. I parked my RV about 50 yards from the lake, close enough to hear the water lapping, far enough to feel alone. Perfect. But then I noticed it. An old pickup truck, rusted to hell, parked about 100 yards away, half hidden by pines. Its tires were sinking into the dirt like it had been there forever. I shrugged it off. Probably some fisherman's junker. I set up camp, popped open a chair by the water, and just breathed. The lake mirrored the sunset. The pines stood like silent guards. For a moment, I forgot the ache in my back, the stress of my job. It was just me and nature. That night, I built a small fire, heated some soup, and settled in. But here's where it gets weird. The forest was too quiet. No crickets, no frogs, just the crackle of my fire. It should have been peaceful, but it wasn't. The silence felt heavy, like it was pressing down on me. The hairs on my neck stood up, and I couldn't shake this feeling, like something was watching me from the dark. Now, I'm not some jumpy city boy who freaks at every shadow. I've camped before, but this was different. I grabbed my flashlight and took a walk along the lake to shake it off. That's when I saw them, fresh footprints in the mud, big ones. Too big for a person, too human for an animal. My curiosity kicked in, and like an idiot, I followed them. They led me straight to that rusty truck, and inside, a faint light flickering. My heart started pounding. Someone or something was in there. I crept closer to the truck, trying not to make a sound. The air felt thick, like it was warning me to turn back. I peeked through the cracked rear window, and what I saw froze me solid. A man, hunched over, surrounded by piles of filthy clothes and empty cans, was muttering to himself. His hands were shaking, clawing at the air like he was searching for something. In the dim glow of a lantern, I saw his torn shirt, his matted hair. He looked like he'd been living in that truck for years. I stepped back, heart racing, ready to bolt. But then I heard him clearer, his voice low and broken, a mix of fear and anger. "He's coming, he's coming," he kept saying over and over. I didn't know who he was, but it was enough to send chills down my spine. I hightailed it back to my RV, locked the door, and pulled the shades down. I turned on my little TV for noise. Anything to drown out the panic creeping up my throat. Hours ticked by. I was drifting off, fighting sleep when it happened. Knock, knock. Soft, hesitant on my RV door. I damn near jumped out of my skin. I grabbed my heavy-duty flashlight, good enough to crack a skull if I had to, and crept to the door. "Who's there?" I called, trying to sound tough. No answer. Knock. Knock. Louder this time. I yelled again. "Who's there?" Finally a voice, weak, raspy, whispered, "Please help me." Against every ounce of common sense, I cracked the door, chain still on. It was him, the guy from the truck. Up close, he looked worse. Wild eyes, shaking like a leaf. "What do you want?" I asked, gripping the flashlight tighter. "Please," he stammered. "Someone's after me. He's gonna kill me." I should have slammed the door. Called the cops, except there was no signal out there. But something in his voice, pure, raw terror, made me pause. I unlatched the chain and let him in. "Any funny business, you're out," I warned. He nodded like a scared kid and stumbled inside. I sat him down, handed him water. "What's your name?" I asked. He gulped it down and croaked. "Frank." "Okay, Frank," I said. "What's going on? Who's after you?" His hands shook as he spoke. "I was hiking a few days ago. Found this old cabin. Thought it was abandoned. Took shelter there when it rained. But someone was living there, a man. He wasn't right. Went crazy when he saw me. Screamed about trespassers, had a knife." He touched his side, and I saw it. A dark stain on his shirt. Blood. "Jesus," I muttered. "Did you go to the police?" He shook his head. "Tried." He followed me. "Knows these woods. I've been running for days, before I could process that." A bang shook the RV, like something heavy slammed into it. Frank flinched. "That's him," he whispered. I grabbed my hunting knife and flashlight, adrenaline pumping. "Stay here," I told him, and stepped outside. The night was freezing, the campfire down to embers. I swept my flashlight across the clearing. Nothing. Just shadows dancing in the wind. I was about to turn back when a voice cut through the dark. Low, menacing. "Where is he?" I spun around, heart in my throat. There, at the edge of the trees, stood a figure. Tall, broad, face hidden under a hood. Moonlight glinted off a knife in his hand. "Get out of here," I shouted, faking bravery. "Leave us alone." He stepped forward. "Give me the little rat and I'll go. Otherwise..." He didn't finish, but the threat hung there like a noose. I knew this guy wasn't bluffing. His voice had this edge, pure insanity. I backed toward the RV, keeping my light on him. Then he lunged, fast, too fast. The knife slashed where I'd been standing a second ago. I swung my flashlight, cracked it against his head. He stumbled, stunned, and I dove inside, slamming the door, locking it. "Get us out of here," I yelled at Frank, jumping into the driver's seat. The engine roared to life just as the guy started pounding on the door, screaming like a rabid animal. I floored it, tires spinning in the dirt before we shot forward. His shouts faded as we tore down the access road, deeper into the forest. We drove for hours. Every shadow a threat, every turn a potential ambush. Frank was a wreck, jumping at every noise. Finally, we hit a main road, then a small town. I pulled into a 24-hour diner, told the waitress enough to get her to call 911. Cops showed up, took Frank away, said they'd get him help. I stayed in the RV under the diner's lights, too wired to sleep. That hooded guy, still out there, and something told me this wasn't over. But here's where it gets crazier. That night wasn't just about some psycho with a knife. See, I couldn't shake what I'd seen. Those footprints, that truck, Frank's story. So I started digging. Weeks later, I'm in Ohio, overhearing bar talk about weird stuff in Allegheny. Tree markings, missing campers, a dark figure. My blood ran cold. Was this tied to Whispering Pines? I had to know. So I went back, alone. I parked my RV at a motel near the forest's edge, too chicken to camp again. Asked around at a diner, got a tip from a waitress, Donna, about strange goings-on and a creature. Said hikers had vanished last month. My gut screamed at me to leave, but I couldn't. I hiked in, looking for that cabin Frank mentioned. The forest was different this time. Thicker, darker, like it was alive. After hours, I found it. A rotting shack, claw marks gouged into the doorframe. Inside, a mess, broken furniture, canned food, and a map pinned to the wall. Red X's marked spots in the forest, dates next to them. Some matched those missing hikers. This wasn't just a crazy guy's hideout. It was a hunting log. Then I heard it. Heavy footsteps outside. I killed my flashlight, pressed against the wall. Through a crack, I saw it. A shape, huge, hunched, with glowing eyes and a snout full of teeth. Not human, not animal, something else. It sniffed the air, and I held my breath, praying it wouldn't find me. After an eternity, it lumbered off. I snapped pics of the map and ran, heart pounding, feeling the forest turn hostile. Every shadow a claw, every sound a growl. I teamed up with Dr. Laura Chen, a cryptozoologist. We set cameras, found footprints, hair samples. Weeks later, we hit gold, or terror. A misty morning, a crash, an inhuman roar. There it was. 8 feet tall, fur matted, eyes glowing like hellfire. We caught it on camera, proof. But then he showed up, the hooded guy. Only he wasn't just some nut. He pulled back his hood. It was Frank, or so I'd thought. Name's William Blackwood, he said. My family's guarded this forest for generations. That creature? A guardian spirit. You've messed with the balance. He raised a rifle. You've seen too much. Before he could shoot, the creature roared, tackled him, crushed him in seconds. Blood everywhere. It turned to us, spoke in a voice like thunder. Speak of this, and the balance breaks. Keep silent, and the forest thrives. Then it vanished. We buried William, destroyed the evidence. The world wasn't ready. Now let's talk about what's really out there. Forests like Allegheny aren't just trees and dirt. They're alive, ancient, hiding things we can't comprehend. That creature, I've spent years researching. Some call it a Wendigo, a skinwalker, a forest god. Legends say these woods were sacred once, guarded by entities that punish trespassers. Hikers vanish, tents shredded, no bodies. Rangers find claw marks too big for bears, hear roars that echo for miles. Imagine you're camping. Night falls, the fire's low. You hear it, a low rumble, not wind, not an animal. Something watches from the trees, eyes glowing. You grab your flashlight, but the beam catches nothing, just endless dark. Then the scratching starts. On your tent, your RV, slow, deliberate. You're not alone. You never were. That's what I felt every night after Whispering Pines. I moved towns, worked odd jobs, but the forest followed me. In dreams, in shadows. Sometimes I'd wake to a distant roar, carried on the wind. It's still out there waiting, and it's not alone. There are others, things with claws, things that whisper, things that hunt. The deep woods are a graveyard of secrets, and we're just prey stumbling through. That's my run-in with the unknown. Wild, right? If it creeped you out, drop a comment below and let me know what you'd have done. Don't forget to subscribe. We've got more coming. Next, we're heading to Blackwater Falls, 1995. I'm Arthur Scott, a teacher with my dog Max, thinking a weekend in West Virginia would recharge me. Big mistake. Here's why. Back in 95, I was Arthur Scott, just a regular guy, teaching history to a bunch of rowdy kids in West Virginia. The classroom was my battlefield, but by fall, I was burned out. I needed a break, something to recharge my soul. Blackwater Falls State Park was my go-to spot. Quiet, beautiful, all those rolling Appalachian hills and golden leaves. I'd been there before, so I figured, why not? Packed up my RV, grabbed my German Shepherd, Max, he was my big goofy sidekick, and hit the road early Friday morning, October 7th. The drive was smooth, just me and Max riding shotgun, his tongue lolling out the window. The countryside rolled by, all fiery reds and oranges, like the world was putting on a show just for us. We got to the park around noon, found a sweet spot by the river, low water, smooth rocks lining the banks, hardly anyone around. Perfect. I set up camp, chairs out, fire pit ready, Max sniffing every bush in sight. That afternoon, I kicked back, watching him splash in the shallows, chasing fish he'd never catch. The air was crisp, the river sang its little song. For once, everything felt right. Evening came, and I fired up the grill, beans and hot dogs, nothing fancy. Max sat by me, eyeballing every bite till I tossed him a hot dog. He snatched it midair like a pro. After dinner, I cracked open a Civil War novel, the fire crackling, leaves rustling in the breeze. Max sprawled out at my feet, lifting his head now and then to scan the woods. It was pure bliss. Until it wasn't. Around sunset, Max got weird. He's usually a ball of energy, but he started pacing by the tree line, ears up, whimpering low in his throat. I called him back. He came, but kept staring into the dark. "What's up, boy?" I asked, shining my flashlight out there. Nothing but trees swallowed by dusk. I figured maybe a deer spooked him. No big deal. But deep down, something felt off, like the forest was holding its breath, waiting for night to drop. As darkness fell, the usual night sounds kicked in. Owls hooting, critters scurrying. But there was this undercurrent, this tension I couldn't shake. I brushed it off, secured the campsite, no food out for bears, and headed into the RV with Max. He didn't want to go, lingering by the door, looking back at the woods. I had to bribe him with a treat. That night, I couldn't sleep. The RV creaked with every gust, and outside, the forest sounded busy, branches snapping, leaves crunching, like something big was moving out there. I must have dozed off eventually, because I jolted awake in the early hours, dead silence, too silent. No wind, no owls, nothing. Then it hit. A low, guttural growl, right outside the RV. My heart kicked into overdrive. I fumbled for my flashlight, hands shaking. Max was already up, hackles raised, growling back from the door. "Quiet, boy," I whispered. Not wanting to piss off whatever was out there, I crept to the window, peered out. Moonlight bathed the campsite in silver, shadows stretching long and jagged. At first, I saw nothing, just the river glinting, trees standing still. Then, movement. Something big, dark, slipping between the pines just beyond the light. Too big for a deer, too smooth for a bear. My breath caught as it stepped into a patch of moonlight. It was humanoid, but wrong. Tall, way taller than me, covered in matted fur, arms too long, swaying like they didn't belong. And its eyes, Jesus, those eyes, two glowing red orbs, burning through the dark, staring right at me. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the flashlight. Max's growl turned into a snarl, his whole body tense. I wanted to run, drive away, but fear glued me to the spot. All I could do was pray it wouldn't come closer. The rest of the night was hell. I sat there clutching my flashlight, listening to every creak, every rustle. Max stayed by the door, ready to fight. By dawn, I was a wreck, exhausted, wired, terrified. When the sun finally peeked through, I stepped outside, Max at my heels. The campsite looked normal until I saw the tracks. Big, inhuman footprints circling the RV, stopping right under the window where I'd seen it. Too large for a bear, with claw marks like daggers. My stomach dropped. Mine. Then I saw the tires, all 4 slashed claw marks tearing through rubber like paper. We were stranded. 5 miles to the ranger station, no choice but to hike. I packed water, food, a hunting knife, pathetic against whatever that was, and left a note on the RV. As we set off, the forest felt wrong, oppressive, like it was pissed we were there. Every snap, every rustle had me jumping, Max glued to my side. The hike was brutal. The woods closed in, trees looming like they wanted to swallow us. An hour in, we hit a clearing, and there it was, a deer carcass, torn to shreds, guts strung across the path like some sick art project. Not a bear kill, too messy, too playful. Same claw tracks circled it. Max whined, pressing closer. I wanted to turn back, but the ranger station was our only shot. We pushed on, the feeling of being watched growing stronger. Twice, I swore I saw something, dark, fast, darting through the trees. My knife felt like a toy in my hand. Hours later, we reached the station. Relief hit, then died. The place was trashed, doors swinging open, papers everywhere, chairs flipped. No rangers, no help. I found a radio, but it was just static. Max growled, staring outside. That growl came again, low, close. It was here. I barricaded the door with furniture, Max dragging a chair over like a damn hero. Night fell, and the noises started, scratching, thumping, like it was testing the walls. Hours dragged on, each sound a nail in my coffin. Around midnight, a crash. The front door splintered. I grabbed my knife, flashlight shaking. It stepped inside. 8 feet of nightmare, fur dripping with shadows, snout packed with teeth. Those red eyes locked on me, smart, evil. It lunged. I swung the knife, hit something, flesh maybe. It roared, furious. Max latched onto its arm, teeth sinking in. Chaos. I bolted past it, Max right behind. We ran into the night, not stopping till headlights flashed. A car. I flagged it down, babbling my story. The driver got us to town. Cops came, listened, didn't believe me. Said it was a bear. Bullshit. They found the station wrecked, my RV slashed, but no creature. Rangers had been on another call. Radio issues. Official report? Bear attack. I knew better. That thing wasn't a bear. It was something old, something hungry. I tried to move on after that night. Left the motel a few days later, dragged myself back home with Max. My house felt safe at first. 4 walls, locked doors, the hum of the fridge drowning out the silence. Max healed up fast, his cuts scabbing over, but he wasn't the same. That big, goofy dog who'd chase his own tail for hours. Gone. Now he'd sit by the door, ears up, eyes locked on the windows like he was waiting for something. Guarding me. I'd catch him growling at nothing. Or at least, nothing I could see. "It's okay, boy," I'd say, scratching his ears. But my voice shook every time. Because deep down, I knew it wasn't okay. I threw myself into research, desperate for answers. Dug through old books, library archives, anything I could find about Blackwater Falls. That's when I stumbled on it, the Wendigo. Native legends called it a spirit of hunger, a cursed thing born from desperation, stalking the wilds. Tall, gaunt, fur like a shroud, eyes that burned red with malice. It could mimic voices, lure you out into the dark. Every detail fit, the growl, the tracks, those damn eyes. I'd sit there at night, papers spread across my kitchen table, coffee going cold, wondering if I'd stared into a myth and lived, but knowing didn't help. Nights got worse. I'd wake up to scratching, faint, teasing, like nails dragging down the glass. I'd stumble to the window, flashlight shaking, expecting those red eyes glaring back. Nothing. Just the empty yard, trees swaying in the wind. Max would pace, hackles up, a low rumble in his chest. I'd check every lock twice, 3 times, but it didn't matter. That thing, it wasn't just out there anymore. It was in my head, my dreams. I'd see it standing at the edge of my bed, silent, watching. Those eyes glowing like embers in a dead fire. I'd wake up screaming, sheets soaked. Max barking like he could chase it off. I started hearing things, whispers in the wind. My name hissed through the trees outside. Once, I swore I heard Max's bark, sharp and panicked, from the backyard. Except he was right beside me, staring at the door. I grabbed my knife, flung it open, but the yard was still, too still. No crickets, no breeze, just that heavy, suffocating quiet from the forest. I slammed the door, bolted it, but the feeling stuck, like it was toying with me, letting me know it could reach me anywhere. It didn't stop there. One night, I was up late grading papers, trying to pretend life was normal. The clock hit 2 a.m., and the house went dead quiet. No hum from the fridge, no ticking clock, nothing. Then a thud, soft, deliberate, against the back door. Max bolted up, snarling, teeth bared. I grabbed my flashlight, crept to the kitchen. Another thud, louder, like something testing the wood. My hands shook as I shone the light through the window. Empty, just shadows. But then I saw it. A smear on the glass, long and wet, like something had dragged its claws down it. I stumbled back, heart pounding, Max barking so loud it hurt my ears. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. I'd find things too. Footprints in the mud outside. Same damn tracks from Blackwater, too big, too clawed. They'd circle the house, stop at my bedroom window, then vanish. I'd lie awake, knife under my pillow, listening to the wind howl like it was laughing at me. Sometimes I'd catch a whiff of it, that rancid, musky stench from the forest seeping through the cracks. Max would growl, nose twitching, and I'd wonder if it was standing right outside, waiting for me to crack. I don't camp alone anymore. Hell, I barely leave the house some days. Friends noticed. "You okay, Art?" they'd ask. I'd nod, force a smile, but they didn't get it. How do you explain that something followed you home? That it's not done with you? I'd sit with Max at night, his head in my lap, listening to the world outside go quiet, too quiet. Every creak of the floor, every rustle beyond the walls made my heart race. I'd tell myself it was over, that I'd escaped, but then I'd hear it. A faint growl, carried on the wind, rolling in from the dark hills beyond town. I've told this story over the years, friends, family, even a few wide-eyed students who caught me in a rare, reflective mood. Some believed me, eyes big as they listened. Others laughed, said I'd had too much campfire whiskey. "A bear, Art, that's all," they'd say. But I know what I saw, what I felt. Those eyes weren't a bear's. They were alive with something ancient, something that hated me for seeing it. It's still out there waiting, and sometimes, when the moon's full and the night's too still, I think it's closer than I want to admit. Now, let's talk about what's really lurking in places like Blackwater Falls. These forests aren't just pretty postcard scenes. They're ancient, alive, pissed off. Legends say the Appalachians are cursed, guarded by things that don't like us stomping through their turf. Wendigos, skinwalkers, call them what you want. Tall, fast, eyes like fire, claws that shred metal. Hikers vanish out there. No trace, just empty campsites, blood on the trees. Picture this. You're alone, tent pitched, fire low. A twig snaps. You shine your light. Nothing. Then the growling starts, deep, vibrating through the ground. Something circles your camp, just out of sight. You hear your name whispered, but no one's there. Footprints appear, too big, too clawed. You run, but the forest twists, traps you. That's what these places do. They hunt you back. I've read reports. Rangers finding gouged trees, hearing screams that cut off sharp. Campers swearing something mimicked their voices, luring them deeper. The deep woods are a predator's playground, and we're the prey. Blackwater's just one spot. There's more. Allegheny, Medicine Bow, Pine Barrens, all hiding things that watch, wait, hunger. Next time you're out there, listen. If the night goes quiet, too quiet, run. Max and I barely made it out. Chilling stuff, huh? Tell me your creepiest forest moment in the comments, and if you're not subscribed yet, hit that button. Trust me, you'll need it for this last one. Now, it's 2000, and I'm Don Peterson, hitting Rocky Mountain National Park with my buddy Rex. A simple getaway turned into a fight for our lives, and not everyone came back. Let's dive in. And back in 2000, I was Don Peterson, just an old guy who'd punched his last clock at the office in Denver, ready to enjoy retirement. City life was fine, but I missed the wild. Those wide open spaces where you can breathe deep and forget the grind. My best friend Rex, he was 55, a wiry ex-trucker with a laugh like a foghorn, felt the same. We'd been pals since our 20s, always talking about hitting the mountains together. So that summer, we made it happen. Packed my RV, threw in some fishing gear, a cooler full of beer and burgers, and headed to Rocky Mountain National Park. The drive was a breeze, just me and Rex trading jabs, windows down, the Rockies rising ahead like giants welcoming us home. We got there late afternoon, found a perfect spot by a stream. Clear water rushing over rocks, massive pines all around, air so fresh it stung your lungs. Hardly anyone else was there, just how we liked it. We set up camp, RV parked, fire pit going, chairs out. Rex was in high spirits, spinning some tall tale about his last fishing trip. Caught a trout so big it damn near pulled me in, he said, grinning. I laughed, flipped the burgers, and for a bit, everything was golden. Sunset hit, painting the sky orange and pink, the stream catching every color like a mirror. We sat by the fire, burgers sizzling, swapping stories. Old times, dumb bets, near misses on the road. Rex was mid-sentence, waving his spatula like a conductor when we heard it. A rustle in the trees, faint but sharp. We both froze, heads turning. Probably a deer, Rex chuckled, brushing it off. But something didn't sit right with me. The air felt heavier, the shadows deeper. I couldn't shake this prickling on my neck, like we weren't alone out there. Gonna check it out, I said, grabbing my flashlight. Rex smirked. You're paranoid, old man. Maybe he was right, but I had to know. I stepped away from the fire's glow, the trees swallowing me up. The beam cut through the dark, pines, bushes, nothing weird. I was about to turn back when I heard it again, closer, a shuffling, like something dragging through the underbrush. My pulse kicked up. but I told myself it was nothing. Just the woods playing tricks. We brushed it off, finished our burgers, and called it a night. I locked the RV door. Rex raised an eyebrow. "What, you think a bear's gonna knock?" he teased. I smirked, but locked it anyway. Something about that rustle stuck with me. I lay in my bunk, listening to Rex snore, trying to ignore the forest whispers creeping through the walls. I woke up around midnight, heart pounding. A sound, scratching, faint but steady, coming from the RV side. Not wind, not branches, deliberate, like nails on metal. I sat up, straining my ears. It got louder, closer. I shook Rex awake. "There's something outside," I whispered, voice tight. He groaned, rubbed his eyes. "You're dreaming, Don," he mumbled. But he got up when the scratching hit again, sharp, insistent. We peered out the window, moonlight barely cutting through the pines. Then I saw it, a figure tall, way too tall, circling the RV, spindly arms, hunched back, moving in jerky bursts like a puppet with cut strings. My blood froze. Rex's face went white. "What the hell is that?" he breathed. We watched, barely breathing, as it scratched at the walls, testing the windows, slow, purposeful. This wasn't some curious critter. It was hunting. I grabbed the only weapon we had, a rusty hunting knife from the drawer. Rex, ever practical, snatched a tire iron. The scratching went on, soft, then loud, vibrating the whole damn RV. We stood there, frozen, listening to it circle us. Then, silence, worse than the noise. Rex peeked out. "It's gone," he said, but his voice shook. Neither of us bought it. We sat at the table, knife and iron close, jumping at every creak. Sleep? Forget it. That thing was out there, and we both knew it wasn't done. Dawn broke, grey and cold. We stepped outside, half expecting it to be waiting. The RV was a mess. Deep scratches gouged into the metal, twisted like something clawed through steel. Tracks in the dirt, almost human, but too big, with long, claw-like toes. We didn't say much, just packed up fast. The spot we'd loved yesterday felt like a trap now. Every shadow a threat, every rustle a promise it had come back. We drove out of Rocky Mountain that morning, the silence between us thick as the pines we'd left behind. Neither of us spoke much. Rex gripped the wheel, knuckles white, while I stared out the window, scanning the trees for any sign of that thing. The scratches on the RV glared back at me in the side mirror, jagged and deep, like a warning carved into our escape. Every shadow felt alive, every rustle a threat creeping closer. I kept waiting for those glowing eyes to flash in the rear view, for that jerky shape to lunge from the woods. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, clutching the tire iron like it'd do any good against something that could claw through steel. The road twisted through the mountains, narrow and rough, the RV rattling like it might fall apart. Rex broke the quiet once, voice low. "What the hell was that thing, Don?" I didn't have an answer, just shook my head, throat tight. We both knew it wasn't a bear, wasn't anything normal. The air outside was cold, seeping through the cracked windows, carrying a faint whiff of something rotten. Wet fur, decay, the same stench I'd caught when it circled us. I rolled the window up fast, but the smell lingered, stuck in my nose like a ghost of the night before. We didn't stop, not for miles. The forest pressed in, pines towering like they were guarding something, hiding it. I kept glancing back, half expecting the rear window to shatter, that thing's claws ripping through. My mind replayed it, the way it moved, fast and wrong, like it didn't belong in this world. Rex's jaw was set, eyes locked on the road, but I saw the tremor in his hands. "We're out of there," he muttered, more to himself than me. I nodded, but the dread sat heavy. Leaving didn't feel like escaping. It felt like running from something that had already marked us. A few hours later, we rolled into a small town. Barely a blip on the map, just a gas station, a diner, and a handful of houses clinging to the foothills. We pulled into the diner lot, tires crunching gravel, and sat there for a minute, engine ticking as it cooled. "Need food," Rex muttered, climbing out. I followed, legs stiff, still wired from adrenaline. Inside, the place was dim, smelled of grease and stale coffee. We ordered burgers, sat in a booth by the window, but neither of us ate much. The food tasted like ash, our usual banter dead. I kept glancing outside, half expecting that thing to slink out from behind the gas pumps. Rex tried to laugh. "Guess we're city boys now, huh?" But it fell flat, his eyes darting to the door every few seconds. That's when the old guy at the counter turned to us. He was hunched, face like weathered leather, eyes sharp under a mop of grey hair. "You boys camping up there?" he asked, voice low and gravelly, like he already knew. "Yeah, cut it short," Rex said. "Saw something weird." The guy nodded, slow, deliberate, like he'd heard it before. "Folks call it the Snatcher," he said, wrapping gnarled hands around his coffee mug. "Been taking people for years. Most don't come back." He turned back to his drink, leaving us cold, the word Snatcher echoing in my skull. We didn't linger, paid quick, filled the tank, and hit the road, putting miles between us and those mountains. Back in Denver, we swore we'd forget it, bury it under work, beers, baseball. But I couldn't. Those scratches, that shape, burned into my brain. Months later, Rex went missing. He'd gone camping alone, stupid, after what we'd seen. They found his truck at a trailhead, nothing else. Search parties came back empty-handed, muttering about strange tracks, a feeling of being watched. I knew the Snatcher got him. I tried telling the cops, but they looked at me like I was nuts. "Lost or an animal," they said. I knew better. It came for him, finished what it started that night. After that, I sold the RV. Couldn't look at those scratches without seeing Rex's face. Moved states, tried to outrun it, but it followed me, in dreams, in shadows. Sometimes I'd hear scratching at my window, faint, mocking. It's still out there waiting. Life after Rocky Mountain was a lie, I told myself. Back in Denver, I'd go to work, grab beers with friends, watch games, but it was all a mask. That night clung to me like damp rot. Rex's disappearance broke something in me. I'd see his truck in every parking lot, hear his laugh in every bar. But he was gone, and I knew why. The Snatcher didn't just take him. It took my peace, my nerve. I started digging. Online forums, old newspapers, anything about those mountains. Found whispers, hikers vanishing, tents shredded, searchers hearing screeches in the night. One guy claimed he saw it, tall, shadowy, moving too fast. But his story was a mess, brushed off as crazy. I wasn't crazy. I'd seen it too. Those tracks, that hunched shape. It was real. Rex tried to move on, worked overtime, partied hard, but I'd catch him staring off, voice low. "You ever think about that night, Don?" he'd ask over a beer, eyes darting like he expected it to walk in. I'd nod. How could I not? After he vanished, I couldn't stay. Denver felt like a cage, every corner a reminder of him, of that thing. I sold the RV, scratches and all, and moved. New state, new life. But you can't outrun what's in your head. Nights got bad. I'd wake to scratching, soft, deliberate, on my windows, my walls. I'd check, flashlight trembling, but nothing. Just shadows swaying, too still. Sometimes I'd smell it, wet fur, decay, slipping through the cracks. I'd double lock everything, sleep with the lights on. But it didn't help. Dreams were the worst. I'd be back in those woods, fire low, Rex laughing, then silence. That thing would step out, red eyes glowing, claws glinting, and Rex would scream. I'd wake up soaked, heart hammering, alone. Once, I swore I heard his voice. "Don, help me," whispered through my bedroom window. I tore the curtains back. Empty street, dead night. But the air felt wrong, heavy, like it was watching. I've become a ghost myself, reclusive, paranoid. Neighbors think I'm just a grumpy old man, always peering out, jumping at shadows. They don't know why. I've got cameras now, motion sensors. Overkill, maybe, but you wouldn't call it that if you'd seen what I have. Some nights, I catch it, a tall shape at my property's edge, gone in a blink. Am I losing it? Or is it really there waiting for me to slip? I've tried warning people, forums, posts. Most laugh. Some share their own tales, but no one gets it till they've felt that primal fear, that certainty you're prey. Now, let's talk about what's really out there in places like Rocky Mountain. These aren't just parks. They're ancient, wild, alive with things we don't understand. The Snatcher's no fairy tale. It's a hunter, tall, fast, claws that shred steel, eyes that see through you. Legends call it different names: Wendigo, Skinwalker, Mountain Devil. But it's the same. Something old, something that owns those peaks. Hikers vanish. No bodies, just torn gear, blood on rocks. Rangers find trees clawed to hell, hear roars that shake the ground. Imagine you're camping, fires dying, nights thick. A branch snaps, too loud, too close. You shine your light, nothing. Then the scratching starts, slow, deliberate, on your tent, your car. You hear footsteps, heavy, circling. Your name whispers through the trees, but you're alone. Or you think you are. Tracks appear, too big, too wrong. You run, but the forest shifts, paths twist, shadows stretch. It's not lost, it's hunting. I've read the reports, campsites trashed, screams cut short, voices mimicked to lure people out. The Rockies, Appalachians, Sierras, they're all alive with these things. They watch from the ridges, wait in the hollows, hunger for anyone dumb enough to wander too far. That night with Rex, just one story. There's more, too many. Next time you're out there, listen. If the woods go silent, dead silent, run, because something's awake and it's not friendly. And there you have it, Nightmare Seekers. 3 tales from the wild that prove the woods aren't as empty as they seem. Gerald, Arthur, Don. We went looking for peace and found something ancient, something that's still out there watching. Did these stories chill you to the bone? Drop a like if they did, and tell me in the comments, what's the creepiest thing you've seen in the dark? If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button now. No sleep nightmares. Reddit has more horrors waiting. And trust me, you won't want to miss what's lurking next. Sleep tight, if you can.